From the headquarters of Telesur English in Caracas, Venezuela, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. We start with Argentina, where President Mauricio Macri has been accused of abuse of power for the agreement he signed with the International Monetary Fund. Macri and his ministers are accused of breaking the Constitution by not seeking Congress approval for the loan deal. State Prosecutor Jorge Di Leyo presented the case and said that it's now up to the court to rule if it suspends the agreement with the IMF. He requested evidence to back up the claims and that the accusation was credible and logical. The growing economic and social crisis in Argentina has claimed the life of a young boy of 13 years old in the province of Chaco. Ismael Ramirez belonged to the Com community. He lost his life as a result of police repression as he took part in a protest for food in front of a supermarket. He was wounded by a bullet, which took his life hours later. There have been several demonstrations over food in the north of Argentina due to the worsening of the economic crisis. And still in Argentina, former President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner will be going on trial in February 2019. So far, 12 businessmen and high-ranking officials linked to the case of alleged corruption have been arrested. Fernández has denied any wrongdoing and has also denounced these proceedings as a political persecution. Vice President of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, spoke to the media after holding a meeting with representatives of the International Migration Organization. She reported that the government of Venezuela will be sending a note to denounce the intervention of a group of countries from the region who are meeting in Ecuador.
We express our concern and rejection of any kind of biased and political manipulation with the immigration issue of Venezuela, as we have already denounced with verified and specific numbers. Today, a failed meeting took place in Quito with governments of the Lima Group. In that meeting, they deliberated over aspects that have nothing to do with the reality of Venezuelan voluntary migratory flows. Venezuelans that each time they gather outside of our embassies to ask for the return to Venezuela. In addition, the President of the Republic has asked that the Foreign Minister immediately present a formal protest through diplomatic means to this meeting that promotes a campaign of xenophobia against Venezuelans, promoting campaigns that denigrate and attack the integrity of Venezuelans. The state will be firm in defending our people around the world.
And in Peru, hundreds of Venezuelans have visited the Venezuelan embassy in Lima to register for their return to the homeland plan. President Nicolás Maduro has launched this plan to help the citizens facing xenophobia and exploitation outside the country.
Angela and Luciana have been in Lima for 2 months. During all this time, they found no work. They spend most of their time here, in this room, which they share with 4 other Venezuelans. But now they want to return to their country and leave behind the memory of the nights spent in this little mattress on the floor, the lack of medical assistance for Luciana's pregnancy and xenophobia.
She hasn't seen a doctor. We walk in the streets selling coffee or chocolate and people tell us things like, "Go back to your country," or "This is our country, not yours." They even got to physically assault us.
Just like them, hundreds of Venezuelans living in Peru look to follow the Back to Our Country plan after not being able to find a better life in Peru, as they were told.
I work in a factory on Torres Avenue, and the boss used to tell me that we must leave 2 hours later because we were Venezuelans and not Peruvians.
She used to get angry when I complained about 30 soles a day. I used to earn after working from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Some women say that they were not only victims of labor exploitation, but also of sexual harassment or people trafficking.
They used to make web announcements looking for a hostess or customer service staff, but then it turned out that they needed us to be escorts or prostitutes.
Among Venezuelans who look to return to their country, there are a few that were considered refugees. Some of them suffer of serious illness and feel abandoned.
I wasn't able to have a roof of my own, nor a job, even medical attention for the condition from which I suffer. This has been completely worthless.
The second flight of the Back to Our Country plan will be leaving from Lima to Caracas on Saturday, September 8th. In the meantime, Venezuela keeps attending their embassy to register for this plan.
Now to Guatemala, where the UN has urged the country's leadership to transfer the responsibilities of the International Commission Against Impunity to national institutions. President Jimmy Morales expelled the UN mission over the weekend. The decision came just after Congress announced it will discuss plans to remove Morales' immunity. The UN says this latest move is a setback in the prosecution, investigation, and dismantling of criminal networks in the country. The preliminary trial against President Morales is already underway. There are mixed opinions about the future of the UN International Commission.
The Guatemalan Congress announced the court date for President Jimmy Morales to present his defense in the preliminary trial against him. Members of the Supreme Electoral Court, Prosecutor's Office, and the UN's International Commission Against Impunity will also attend. We have given a court date to President Jimmy Morales between October 11th and October 14th. Indigenous leaders across the country urged the Congress to start the legal process against President Morales. They say it is important for the people to know if the head of state received illegal funds during his presidential campaign in 2015.
They should remove impunity for President Jimmy Morales to be investigated. This is the third time they want to remove his impunity. He should be in jail by now.
President Jimmy Morales expelled the International Commission Against Impunity after an investigation on corruption allegations against him. This generated mixed opinions in the country.
We elected the president to make these kinds of decisions. Maybe some people don't agree with him, but in my opinion, I think he did the right thing. He applied the law.
Yo en lo personal creo que lo importante es que lo hizo por la vía correcta.
We can see that the International Commission Against Impunity has done much more than Jimmy Morales. That's why we don't agree with the president. Although he has all the right to do so, we would prefer that the commission does it.
The Constitutional Court has rejected the proposed legal protection for President Jimmy Morales.
Coming up, more stories. We'll be back.
Me gustaría tener un mundo mucho más inclusivo para todos.
没有贫穷.
Στην ανθρωπότητα θα ήθελα να δω παραπάνω αγάπη, αγνότητα, πολιτισμό και επαφή με τη φύση.
Que el ser humano despierte su conciencia.
I want humanity to see itself as one humanity.
We are the people, a space, a voice. We are Telesur without borders.
Welcome back. Brazil's Workers' Party has announced it will present an appeal to the Supreme Federal Court. It wants to guarantee the presidential candidacy of former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. The PT will also appeal to the United Nations. Its Human Rights Committee had said Lula's political rights need to be respected. Vice presidential candidate Fernando Haddad says the party will continue appealing to all instances in order to secure his candidacy. Haddad now faces charges of corruption, but his candidacy won't be affected. The PT is also banned from using Lula's images in any of its ad campaigns. People are calling on Brazil's Supreme Court to prosecute presidential candidate Jair Bolsonaro for electoral insult, incitement to crime, and the use of threatening language. Over the weekend, the far-right candidate gave a speech and, while holding a gun, said that members of the opposition Workers' Party should be shot. He also faces charges for racism and using violent language against women.
We will shoot down members of the Workers' Party in Acre. We will make them flee, and since they like Venezuela so much, they'll have to go there and they will eat grass, because they don't even have mortadella.
Bolivia's President Evo Morales has sworn in a new foreign minister. It's being seen as a part of a series of adjustments as the country waits for a judgment in the International Court of Justice on its maritime claim against Chile.
President Evo Morales replaced Foreign Minister Fernando Wanacuni and said he will take up other responsibilities in the Foreign Service. It comes as expectations are rising ahead of a decision in The Hague on Bolivia's case to regain access to the sea.
We have new challenges, we have a lot of hope and trust in the judges in The Hague.
The new Foreign Minister is Diego Pari. He's had a long career in international organizations. Until his swearing in, he was the Bolivian ambassador to the Organization of American States, the OAS.
One of the fundamental priorities of our foreign policy is the maritime issue, the claim that is currently in The Hague, and also the issue of the Silala River. So these will, of course, be major priorities for me as a foreign minister.
Chile has turned up the temperature by deciding unilaterally to suspend the annual meetings of a border committee between the two countries. It was in protest at Bolivia's decision last week to also take Chile to the International Court of Justice over its claim to the Silala River.
We have a mechanism that should never be interrupted, and that is dialogue. This is the mechanism used by the Border Committee. Why? For one simple reason. We live side by side. Consular issues are not going to stop. Every day, people, trucks, merchandise, and tourists pass from Bolivia to Chile and from Chile to Bolivia. So we have a responsibility to deal with these issues, and that is what the Border Committee is for, to solve these urgent issues as they arise.
Bolivia first took its maritime case to the court in The Hague 5 years ago to force Chile into talks on its access to the sea. 2 years ago, Chile demanded that Bolivia declare the Silala an international river so that its waters could be used by both countries. And last week, Bolivia came back to demand its sovereignty over the Silala River, which Chile channeled more than a century ago to make it flow towards its territory.
Unions in Trinidad and Tobago are preparing for a national strike this Friday, but the government is threatening legal action if certain essential service workers walk off the job. The Minister of Public Administration warned that the armed forces, healthcare workers, and teachers could face a fine or imprisonment. The unions have vowed to ramp up their actions if the government follows through on their threats.
We stand firmly in solidarity with all the teachers and the problems they have. And if you want to exacerbate the problems that you have already created, just touch one of these trade unions in Trinidad and Tobago.
Now to Cuba, where members of religious associations and academic institutions from 15 countries have begun a workshop on the impact of climate change. The meeting is being hosted by the Cuban Council of Churches in Havana. The organizers say the aim is to raise awareness of the impact of climate change on sustainable development. They also want to provide practical knowledge on risk management and deepen understanding of the Paris Agreement.
With this event, we want to change the focus to a more sustainable approach of preparation, and we want to collaborate a little more closely with the government, especially to develop solutions to climate change, because the government cannot do this alone, civil society cannot do it alone, nor can the United Nations system. We all have to do it together, and the communities have a contribution to make.
Now to the United States, where legislators of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, this group, sent a letter to the Trump administration demanding answers on the status of separated infants from their parents during the implementation of the zero-tolerance policy at the border of the United States and Mexico. Congressman Steny Hoyer tweeted that the document was also addressed to the Secretary of Health and Human Services, the Secretary of State, and the Attorney General. The letter shows several reports, like the use of drugs in girls and boys. It also questions the government on its capacity to resolve cases of sexual abuse in the facilities operated by its contractors. These are among other requests awaiting for a response. We'll take a short break, but stay with us. Welcome back. President of Catalonia, Quim Torra, has rejected a proposal from the new government in Madrid for greater autonomy for Catalonia. It says it falls well short of independence. The Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez ruled out another vote on independence after last October's referendum. Instead, he proposed a referendum on greater Catalan autonomy. Torra admitted that the proposal was interesting, but asked for negotiations on political prisoners.
There has been a planned attempt to destroy the ideas and the independence project, but Catalan people has resisted against that attempt. We have not taken a single step back and we have not renounced to anything. Before the international public opinion, our cause is more solid and more respected than before.
Let's go to our correspondent in Barcelona, John Ortiz.
It is here at the National Theatre of Catalonia that Quim Torra gave a speech seen as a sort of starting gun. He spoke of a referendum of agreeing this with the Spanish state, and on several occasions in the speech he again reached out to the government of Pedro Sánchez. He also talked about strengthening the empowerment of civil society, and he mentioned a march for civil rights without giving many details. He said this march would begin tomorrow and end when the verdict is known in the trial of the political prisoners. In reality, this march cannot happen tomorrow as there's nothing prepared, but it could happen later. He has returned to the theme of independence. He argued that there is already a majority to establish a Catalan republic. He said the growth of support can be seen from three very clear statistics. 80% of the people want a referendum. 80% are against the repression by the Spanish state, and he says that this 80% also believe that the monarchy is an institution that does not represent them. In relation to the trial of political prisoners, he will not accept a guilty verdict, only their acquittal. Finally, just to highlight some interesting phrases, he said it's freedom or freedom. There are no other options. And he also said that no one had fled justice, but that we had to go abroad to find it.
Israeli airstrikes into northwestern Syria have killed one person and injured at least 12, according to Syrian media. The attack happened in the city of Hama. Footage filmed in the nearby town of Masyaf shows what appears to be smoke rising on the horizon. Loud bangs can also be heard. Israeli defense forces have not yet confirmed responsibility for this attack. And for more on this new aggression against the Syrian Arab army, we go to our correspondent Hisham Wanous with all the details from Damascus.
Israel has used combat airplanes which entered into Syria's airspace on the west side of the country, with missile targets in the coast and northwest provinces. Syria's anti-missile system broke down two of them and forced the Israeli planes to retrieve. One person died and 13 people are seriously injured, according to the preliminary figures, which have yet to be confirmed by the authorities. They denounced this aggression against the army, which is currently fighting terrorists along its borders and seeking to reach a peaceful agreement to end the hostilities. This topic will be analyzed in the upcoming meeting of the President of Russia, Iran and Turkey in the Tehran on Friday. Syrian authorities say the attack by the Israeli army and the threats by the United States could be lead to a humanitarian crisis.
Scores of Palestinian protesters have been wounded by Israeli forces at Gaza's main crossing into Israel. Marches headed towards the Erez crossing to protest against the U.S. government's decision to end all aid to the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, or UNRWA. The Israeli Defense Forces fired tear gas and live bullets at the protesters. The Israeli military said the Palestinians had thrown stones at them. The president of Iran, Hassan Rouhani, opened 3 new petrochemical projects on Tuesday. Rouhani said that the inauguration of these projects shows Iran's victory over plots by the United States. He said that the country will continue to produce and export its oil despite new U.S. sanctions. These are set to take effect on November 4th and aim to restrict sales of petrochemical products and oil from Iran. The government says they are a direct attempt to cripple the economy and bring about a change of government.
Today we face it with new levels of plot by our enemies. They are those who wanted to stop our success in the Islamic Revolution and they were unsuccessful. They are those who wanted to prevent us from being successful in the 8-year Holy Defense War with Iraq and were unsuccessful. Today, as the country blooms, they are plotting anew against this nation and its great people.
China-Africa relations are at their best ever, according to Chinese President Xi Jinping. Xi was speaking on the second and final day of the 2018 Forum on China-Africa Cooperation in Beijing. He said relations will now focus on implementing 8 major initiatives, including promoting industry, infrastructure connectivity, trade facilitation, and green development. The other priorities are capacity building, healthcare, people-to-people exchange, and peace and security.
China-Africa relations have stood the test of time and international changes, and embarked on a distinctive path of win-win cooperations. China-Africa relations are at their best history. The two sides would improve the coordination of strategies and policies and advance cooperation under the Belt and Road Initiative.
Alongside Xi were the presidents of Senegal, Macky Sall, and of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa. Ramaphosa said that since China is Africa's #1 trading partner, they have agreed to increase exports to the Asian nation.
It has also been heartening to witness the spirit of cooperation that prevailed amongst the leaders from Africa during the deliberations. And this underlined the deep bonds of friendship and mutual understanding between China and the countries from the African continent. And the success of the summit owes much to our shared commitment to develop this partnership further so that it continues to benefit all our people, the 2.6 billion people that we're all about this past few days.
Mali's President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta was sworn in for his second term in office in Bamako on Tuesday. His inauguration begins another 5-year term for Keïta at a time when the country is living with rising violence by jihadist groups and ethnic militia. Keïta won 67% of the runoff vote against frontrunner Somalia Cisse on August 20. The Constitutional Court rejected fraud accusations by the opposition candidate. A South Korean presidential envoy is set to visit the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, known as North Korea, on Wednesday. On this trip, the two countries will be discussing an upcoming summit to be held later this month, making it the third summit by the Koreas since April. South Korea's National Security Office chief says he's seeking to discuss ways to achieve complete denuclearization of the Korean peninsula. The two presidents had agreed to this goal during their first summit. And with that, we come to the end of this news brief. But this and many other stories, as you know, you can find on our website at telesurtv.net/English. Here you can find more information and updated information on everything we've discussed today. And be sure to follow us also on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.